We all have different budgets and spending capacities when it comes to our favourite hobbies. This is true whether your hobby is watches, wine, beer, cars, audio, photography. Maybe you actually split your money and your time between multiple hobbies. Well, let me help you find the best way to invest your money in the audio hobby if you've got between $500 and $1,000 to spend. Before we get to that though, and while we're talking about investing money, I need to send a huge, heartfelt thanks to some very special viewers. A few weeks ago, I shared a fundraiser with my channel Patreon members, the YouTube community here, and also my Instagram followers, who I've been neglecting lately. Sorry about the lack of content. The fundraiser was to help me purchase a camera specifically for filming reviews here on this channel, as opposed to using my photography hobby camera that I'd been making the most of or the best of as a filming camera up until now. Some of you were incredibly generous and helped me to be able to afford the camera that I'm filming on right now. And that means that as I hold up products to talk today, or as I wave my hands around as I tend to do, I'm not going to go constantly in and out of focus, you're not going to have to deal with blurry images, and hopefully we'll all have a better time of it. And so coming back around to investing our money in our favourite hobbies, these people chose to invest in this channel instead of putting that money into their own hobby. And that's why I want to send my deepest, heartfelt thanks to each and every one of them. Together, you helped me raise more than half of the cost of this camera, and it got me to the goal of being able to film more effectively, much quicker than I could have done on my own. And so in alphabetical order, thank you to BMC Audio Visual, to Eric, to Jashelli Labs, Maxim, Neil, Philip K, also Philip S, Remy I, Steve, and Todd. Of course, some of you couldn't donate, and that's totally okay. Thank you instead for your support in the form of watching videos, sharing videos, liking them, commenting down below. All of it is a huge help to the ongoing growth of the channel. So much love to all of you. And now let's get back to how you should spend your next $500 to $1,000 on audio. I'm going to approach this video a little bit more logically than I did in the video for the $250 to $500 range. That one came out just a little while ago. This time, let's follow the source chain, starting at the transport end of the source chain and working our way down. If the term transport means nothing to you, I did a video all about what that actually means, what it is, what it isn't, and how to choose one just recently here on the channel. So all you need to do is search for Passion for Sound Transport here on YouTube, and that video is going to come up. But watch this one first and then go to that one after. In this video, the only type of transport I'm talking about are streamers, and there are two in this price range. There probably are some other excellent streaming options below $1,000 and above $500, and so let us know in the comments what your choices would be. But of the ones that I've personally tried, the two I would recommend are the Eversolo DMP A6 and the FIO R7. For its $859 retail price, the DMP A6 from Eversolo offers a fantastic design, fantastic interface, and a brilliant set of overall features. It's compatible with lots of different apps, and it's very versatile with its physical connectivity, in other words, the number of inputs and outputs that it's got. That could also be said for the FIO R7, which also comes in a bit cheaper at about $700. Where the R7 has a benefit is that it also has an onboard headphone amp. So if you're looking for a simple, all-in-one desktop solution that's a streamer, a DAC, a headphone amp, even a preamp for active speakers if you want, the FIO R7 could be even better. Where the Eversolo streamer pulls ahead slightly for me over the R7 is the interface that it offers and the ability to mirror everything that's going on the A6 to your smartphone. So you can control it as if you're sitting in front of the A6 anywhere at all, so long as you're connected to the same Wi-Fi network. And so that takes the Eversolo just a little bit beyond the FIO R7 for me and my personal tastes. But as I said before, if you need a headphone output, the FIO is still an amazing option and a better one than the Eversolo if you want headphones. And so check out the reviews linked in the description down below if you want to know more about either or both of those before you make up your mind. Or if you already know what you're after, you can just use the purchasing links down in the description below as well. And now from there, most people will run straight from a streamer into a DAC. But if you want to increase your connection options and improve your sound quality from either a streamer or a computer, you might choose to put a digital to digital converter in between your USB source, let's say your transport, your streamer, your computer, and the DAC that it's going to run into. And by the way, a digital to digital converter is also sometimes referred to as a USB bridge. They're basically the same thing. I've explained in the full review of the device I'm about to recommend why digital to digital converters are so great and how they help the sound quality of your system. And the product that I'm going to recommend is the Singer or Singsa SU6. For just under $640, the Singer SU6 will take a USB connection from your computer or your streamer, and it will only take a USB connection, so keep that in mind. And from that USB connection, it's going to create multiple outputs in the form of optical outputs, coaxial outputs, and even I2S outputs. Where I find that to be really handy is that from a single USB output from a streamer or a computer, you can then run multiple other digital devices. On top of that, it will also improve the sound quality in many cases, because by having the Singer SU6 in the middle, it's isolating any noise coming through the USB circuit and keeping it away from your downstream DAC. That's particularly useful in computers where they tend to be quite noisy devices. It's less so in streamers. With some streamers it'll help, with some streamers not so much. But for me, the SU6 is a permanent inclusion in my source chains and therefore a product that I wanted to recommend here. And so from DDCs or digital to digital converters, we're going to move on to DACs or digital to analog converters. And I'm going to be a little bit cheeky here. I recommended the Geshelli Labs J3 Pro DAC in my sub $500 video, and I'm bringing it back here too. The J3 DAC is a bit unique because you can order it with lots of different optional upgrades in the form of the op amps it uses. And I'm going to recommend it here with the maximum upgrades applied. I definitely wouldn't recommend the J3 in this price category if you're going to buy it in its stock form, because there are other DACs, which I'll tell you about in a moment, that will perform much better. But if you were to spec the J3 to its full capabilities, at which point it's going to cost you a little bit over $800 depending on whether you choose the Burson V7 Vivid or the Sparkos Pro op amps, by the time you spec it to that level, at over $800, the J3 becomes an exceptionally good DAC at the price. In fact, I would say that suddenly, when you get to that point, it's one of the 2 best DACs on the market. And so check out the full review via the links down below if you want to know what I'm saying and why I'm saying this about the J3. But I also need to tell you about the competition for the J3 in the form of the shit Bifrost 2. The Bifrost 2 is a wonderfully simple DAC. It doesn't do DSD or super high sample rates, and it only accepts USB, optical, and coaxial inputs. But it sounds fantastic. For $799 or $829 if you choose the silver option, the Bifrost 2 is very, very hard to beat at the price and even a bit above. And that's because it provides a lifelike sound with a full-bodied but not rich or warm presentation. It's got meat to its bones, but it's still detailed. It provides clarity, resolution, everything you want at this price point. I also think it looks great in any type of system. It's compact, it's sleek, and whether it's black or silver, I think it looks pretty stylish. Now down below in the links, I've sent you through to my review of the Bifrost 2/64 upgrade. That came a little while back, and it took the original Bifrost 2 to a high level still. And so that's the current version. If you order it on the shit website, you'll be getting what I talked about in that video. And so moving on a little bit from DACs, like a half step, we're now going to talk about the DACs that also have the headphone amp built in. I tend to call these all-in-ones. And I've got 3 or actually 4 quite different devices to talk about here. First up, HiFi is getting 2 bites at the cherry in this category, and that's because their EF600 and Serenade devices both sit below $1,000 and offer quite similar features and design. The Serenade just does it a little better and costs a bit more. Both devices combine HiFi's excellent Himalaya R2R DAC technology with solid headphone output stages. They'll also output the analog signal, so you can use them as a DAC for a speaker setup too if you want to. But do be aware that the EF600 doesn't have preamp capabilities, so you'll need to pair it up with an integrated amp or a separate preamp. The Serenade, on the other hand, can be both a pure DAC, but also a DAC and preamp. And that might be a reason that you choose one over the other instantly. You can check out the reviews in the description to find out more. Going then in a very different direction, we come to the Chord Mojo 2. This is a teeny tiny DAC and headphone amp that packs a major performance punch. The Mojo 2 is as much a portable device as it is a desktop level performer as a DAC and a headphone amp. Its compact design and 3.5mm outputs only make it a bit less convenient as a desktop device, but with a simple 3.5mm to RCA cable, it can become an impressive DAC and preamp for your speaker setup. I'm yet to find its equal in portable audio quality, and I think it sits alongside amazing DACs like the Bifrost 2 and the Geshelli Labs J3 Pro that I spoke about earlier when it comes to full-on desktop DAC designs. Now, I would choose the Bifrost 2 or the J3 Pro over the Mojo 2 for desktop duties, but that's purely because of their form factor, not so much sound quality. On sound quality, it's more a case of different rather than better and worse. But in terms of the ergonomics, having things like XLR connections and a full-size device, I do think that's where the edge goes to the Bifrost 2 and the J3 Pro. But neither of those have a headphone output. And now if we go to the final inclusion in this list of all-in-one devices, this one's kind of a portable device, but really not. It's the Xduo XD05 Pro, and it's much chunkier than the Mojo 2, but otherwise similar in features. The XD05 Pro offers a lot more power than the Mojo 2, and it has a proper balanced output. It's also got line outputs too, and that makes it a little bit more desktop capable, but also way less portable. What it also offers is the ability to swap out DAC cards and op amps, so you can tweak the sound to your tastes. But strangely, it doesn't ever sound quite as good as the Mojo 2, to my ears at least, no matter what combination of DAC and op amps I managed to squeeze within the XD05 Pro. And so you might wonder why I'm recommending it here if the Mojo 2 exists. And it comes down to a couple of things. One of them is I like the versatility of the connectivity of the XD05 Pro and the swappability, and part of that is that it leads to it being an incredibly fun device to use. This is just a device that I want to consistently keep using, even though rationally it's not quite as good as an alternative like the Mojo 2. But I love the interface and I want to keep playing with it. And so that rounds out all-in-ones and is the point at which our source chain starts to diverge a bit more. Because at this point, after you've got your DAC taken care of, you might now be going to a preamp, an integrated amp, a power amp, or a headphone amp. Let's start with speaker amps. This is a curious category for me at this price point because I haven't reviewed a lot of speaker amps in this price range. And those that I have reviewed are a little bit more mixed. And that's why I'm including the Topping B200 here as a maybe in this category. The first reason they're only a maybe is that each individual Topping B200 costs $599 US, and being a monoblock, you need two of them for a stereo setup. That means $1,200 US for a stereo pair, and therefore we're actually creeping outside of my allocated budget here. Of course, at the time of the year that I'm releasing this, there's going to be sales on, so you might be able to squeak them down closer to $1,000 for the pair, and that's part of why I included them. The other reason that they're a maybe is that I found the B200s to be quite a polite amplifier. They've got a sound that's very refined and smooth, not warm but smooth, to the point of being sometimes just a little bit boring depending on the room you're in and the speakers you're using. With a bright, dynamic speaker setup, the B200s could be just the thing. But if you need an amplifier that's a little bit more lively and engaging, I'd be buying an Elekit TU-8200R. At least while you still can. The TU-8200R has been discontinued now, and there's limited stock available at some of the online stores I checked. But I think the 8200R is a bit of an unsung hero. Those that know about it tend to really like it, but it doesn't get talked about as much as some of the more popular gear. It has a wonderful sound no matter how you set it up, but it also has an auto biasing system that allows you to swap in a bunch of different tubes. EL34s, 6L6s, KT88s, KT66s, and I'm probably forgetting a bunch as well. And what that means is that you can tune the 8200R to give you exactly the sound that you want. Crisp, clean and detailed on one end, or rich, smooth and creamy on the other. It's all up to you. Add to that the fact that you can build it yourself, or you can buy it pre-built, and that it also offers an outstanding headphone amp socket for high impedance headphones, and you've got yourself a real winner. There is also a new version of the 8200R called the 8400, but it's a bit more expensive, and I haven't tried that one yet. And by the way, if we're talking about the B200, you'd need a preamp with those, but you wouldn't need it with the 8200R because that's an integrated amp with its very own volume control. And on that note, I don't actually have any dedicated preamps to share with you in this price range, but I do have a couple of great headphone amps to recommend, and they can act as your preamp as well as your headphone amp. On top of that, the performance of them that I describe in their reviews as a headphone amp is exactly the same as a preamp, which is to say, it's excellent. First up in headphone amps is the solid-state Auna S17 Pro. It offers some great features, a nice interface, and lovely sound. I wasn't quite as excited about it as some other people when it was first released, as in I didn't jump on the hype train with this one, but I do still think it's an excellent amp. Just be sure that you give it plenty of ventilation because that one does run pretty warm. If solid state isn't your thing, or you want something with a bit more character, and even better if you want something that you can tweak the sound a little bit, then you're going to be interested in the Sparkos Labs Gemini. This guy doesn't look very flash, especially with the screws hanging out the side, so I can quickly and easily take the top off for tube rolling, but its internals are impeccable. The Gemini runs the Sparkos Labs Pro op amps in its solid state stage, which is the output stage of the amplifier, and it runs a tube setup with just a single tube that will allow for dozens of different tube varieties to go into that tube slot. That handles the gain of the amplifier, the initial amplification of your input signal, and it means that you can impart all sorts of different tube flavors through the Gemini, and you can tweak how much or how little of that tube flavor you get in the sound. Again, I've described all of how that works in the full review. What it means though is that the Gemini can be a rich, tubey, thick sounding amp, or it can be a crisp, detailed and clarity focused amp. It's all up to you. What makes it particularly good is that you don't need to worry about buying matched pairs because it's just a single tube that you need, and you can also swap that tube very quickly because you're not having to wait for multiple tubes to cool down, pull them out, put new ones in, etc. Just one tube, out, in, and away you go. Now, if you buy one of those headphone amps, or you've already got your headphone amp sorted, you're going to possibly need a great pair of headphones to go with it. And in this price bracket, we are spoiled for choice. In order of price here, the easiest choice in my opinion is the Meza Audio 109 Pro. As with all headphones, not everybody's going to love these, but I think they're probably one of the best options on the market at any price for most people. They bring outstanding comfort, gorgeous design, and a tuning that's very well balanced across the entire frequency range. In this category, these would be, and were, my personal choice. But if you need a closed-back headphone, another great choice is the Dan Clark Audio Aeon 2 Noir. These fold up into a tiny package if you need something portable, but there's still a proper desktop headphone, so you're not sacrificing on sound quality by having something that's portable. They're also tunable with a set of included little filters that go inside the cups, and so it's very quick and easy to adjust them to your tastes. And then that brings us around to the last headphone here in this sub $1,000 category, and it's the HiFi Aria Organic. These have only just joined the sub $1,000 category thanks to the release of the newer version, Aria Unveiled. The Organics used to cost significantly more than $1,000, and now they sit just below $1,000, and at that price, they're a brilliant option. They do have a slightly brighter than natural top end, there's a bit of extra emphasis in the treble, but they never get harsh or difficult to listen to because the quality of that treble is excellent. Of course, if the idea of buying a headphone that's technically been superseded makes you a bit uncomfortable, I'll be reviewing the unveiled version of the Arias just as soon as I can, so subscribe if you're interested. And that brings us to the end of desktop gear, but we're not quite at the end of the video. And that's because if you're anything like me, you're also going to want great sound when you're out and about. And there are two pieces to that puzzle. So let's start with the source. I spoke about some great dongle DACs in the $250 to $500 category, and so in this one with a bit more to spend, we're stepping away from dongle DACs and going to fully fledged portable audio devices. And my recommendations here for under $1,000 are the Chord Mojo 2 that we've already discussed. Obviously you just plug in your phone instead of your computer or your streamer, and the Chord Mojo 2 does the rest. Or you could grab something like the FiiO M23 and have everything you need all in one place. The apps for streaming, music storage on a micro SD card, and then you've got your DAC and your headphone amp all built in to one sleek package. Just plug in your headphones or your IEMs and enjoy the music. And speaking of IEMs, we haven't gone there yet, so let's go now. We have three wonderful choices below $1,000. Starting off, the Sennheiser IE600 is insanely comfortable and insanely good for the price. It's got a fantastic, punchy and dynamic sound, but nothing that goes too far. It doesn't get overly energetic or in your face. I think the IE600s are one of those IEMs that almost everybody will enjoy, as long as you get a genuine pair, because there's some dodgy fakes around. Do be aware of those. A similar but slightly different option in terms of the tuning is similar, but the delivery of it and the packaging in terms of the shell and the design being different is the Elysian Acoustics and Effect Audio Pilgrim Noir IEM. These are just a bit more expensive than the Sennheisers, but they offer a gorgeous design and a beautiful tuning. The tuning is somewhat similar to the IE600, and from memory I concluded in my review that I liked the Pilgrim Noir just a little tiny bit more than the IE600s. but it's close enough that I can't actually remember which one I gave the win to, and I would gladly pick up either of those IEMs, being the IE600 or the Pilgrim Noir, with a great big smile of anticipation on my face. And that brings us to the final IEM in this list, in the form of the Oravetti OH700VB. I really enjoyed this one when I reviewed it, and I particularly liked the fact that you could change its bass response with just the flick of a switch. I always love a product with good quality sound adjustment, because we all know that sound can change from one track to the next depending on what the mixing and mastering engineer thought sounded best. And so being able to adapt to each different mix or each different album with just the flick of a switch is really handy. And on top of that, they sound good in either mode. And so there we have it. My top recommendations between $500 and $1,000. Thanks for coming along for the ride. Now, if you've gotten this far in the video and you'd like to see another one like this at a higher price point, let me know in the comments, would you like to see it up to $2,000 or up to $3,000 next? In other words, from $1,000 to where? Of course, if you want to go lower rather than higher, I've already got that one for you. Watch this video next with my top recommendations below $500. And for now, thank you to YouTube channel members, thank you to channel Patreon members, and thank you to those of you that leave super thanks on videos like this one. Until next time, happy listening, be kind to each other, and I'll see you here again soon on Passion for Sound.